Hi everyone. So welcome to our webinar, Easy AI Right Now. I'm Jamie, I'm from Everon. I'm gonna just briefly share my slide deck and then we'll kind of get started with the webinar. Throughout the webinar, if you want to ask questions, we'll kind of have a space at the end where we can answer those for you. So this morning, I'm going to show you how easy it is to use AI effectively right now in your business. I think a lot of people are starting to use it, but maybe not quite in the most efficient ways or in a practical way that's actually going to help drive efficiencies. So I'll quickly get the boring bit out of the way first and just give you a tiny brief bit of insight into myself and Everon, which is my company. So we've been working in IT and partnering with clients since 2017. Predominantly work across the Yorkshire region, but we do have some London-based and even a Spanish-based client at the moment. So kind of geography is not really an issue for us with the invention of the cloud or the adoption of the cloud now. And we specialize in working with regulated industries. So our biggest verticals are financial and legal. We do have other clients as well, but ultimately we know enough or we know more about those industries and some of the pain points that they have that we can actually add more value to them. And we kind of believe that the traditional IT support is no longer kind of fit for purpose for companies in the modern day. And we believe that all IT companies should deliver IT support as a core functionality, but they should actually be helping you with digital process improvement, digital transformation, that kind of thing. So we kind of have our core offering, which is our normal support service, but we actually proactively help clients with digital transformation, workflow improvement, and obviously AI now is a big part of that because we're using AI to drive efficiencies within clients' businesses. As I mentioned, I'm a co-founder of Everon. I started my IT career back in 2003, and my role right now within Everon is to work closely with clients or new clients to help them understand what's available. Obviously, technology is a massively rapidly changing environment, and we don't always know what technologies are available to us and what are the best technologies to use. So a lot of my job right now is spending time with clients and prospects to really educate them on what's available and how it can benefit them. So boring bit out of the way, let's dig into AI, sorry. So as I mentioned, I've worked in IT now for over 15 years. And during that time, there've always been lots of next big things that are supposed to going to change the way we work, we play, or we live with technology. From the invention of new worlds with the meta universe we had a couple of years back, new money with cryptocurrency that's still around, or the invention of 3D printing and being able to print 3D meals at home. It seems like every few years we're introduced to a new technology with the promises of its potential. Unfortunately, though, most of the times these new technologies either don't live up to their hype or they fall short in delivering. And I certainly know from my bank statements that cryptocurrency hasn't yet delivered me my Lamborghini or my mansion. So, with 2023 being the year of AI and all its hype, which is the best AI to be using and what should you be using it for? Well, before we dive in and I share my thoughts, let's just run a quick test to see if AI will actually lead to the destruction, sorry, I can say that then, of humanity in the near future. So does anyone remember that part in the Terminator films when Arnold Schwarzenegger comes back from the future and he's tasked with protecting a young boy called John Connor? For those of you that don't, John Connor will grow up to lead the resistance against AI and machines of the future. So he's sent back to protect him. So let's all just hold for a minute, see if we get a message back from the future warning us on the danger of AI. And if so, we'll stop. If not, we'll carry on. Perfect. So we haven't had a message from Arnie. We can assume the future is not all doom and gloom, and AI is not going to lead to the death of humanity. So let's dig in, and we can get to talk about AI in a bit more detail. Probably the first thing to cover off is a little bit of the history of AI. Specifically, how old is AI? It's actually a lot older than most people realize. I think the conception is that it's something from the last year or two, but as you can see from this slide, it actually dates back to the 1950s, with 1956 being the official year that it was recognised as an academic discipline, with something called the Dartmouth Workshop in the United States. Obviously, you can see from the picture one of the computers of the time there. It's more of a room-based machine than something you can fit under your desktop. So you can imagine in those early years, they actually made really slow progress. In fact, the power you all have in your smartphones today is more than 200 times more powerful, than anything they had back in the 50s. And the rate of progression in AI and what they were trying to achieve didn't really speed up until the 1990s, when the kind of computing power was growing quickly enough to support some of the theories and the things we were developing. And one of the first major milestones that demonstrated the progress that had been made was in 1997, when IBM created something called the Deep Blue computer, and it actually beat the reigning world chess champion at the time in a game of chess. And although it was a primitive version of AI, it showed the world a kind of glimpse of what AI could do and how powerful it could become. And this was at a time when, although computers were smaller, as you can see from that image there, they were still big monitors, massive plastic boxes. So it was still kind of early on in the development. Fast forward to 2010, IBM again, who were kind of pioneering this AI, released its Watson system. And this was one of the first AI systems that was capable of using natural language. What this meant was you can actually talk to Watson as if you were talking to another human. It would hold conversation and could understand kind of the language you used. In essence, IBM Watson was the birth of AIs like ChatGPT, which I'm sure we're all aware of. It was also one of the first what we call generative AI platforms. So we have traditional AI and generative AI, and while they're very similar in their kind of core functions, generative AI is able to output content that resembles human-made content. So the things that you see like now with AI-generated images, poems, stories, blog posts for websites, all this stuff is generative AI, and that's kind of the rapid rise we've seen recently. Is not in traditional AI, but in Gen AI or generative AI. And to prove the power of Gen AI, IBM Watson was actually invited to be a guest on the American game show Jeopardy. The quiz show Jeopardy, basically, they had to answer questions or find a question based on some language or sentences that were put in front of it. So it was perfect for IBM and Watson to show the power of Gen AI, because the system learned the questions and it actually went on to win that game show and the $1 million prize fund that Jeopardy put out for a computer to basically beat a human. So that was 2010. More recently, and I'm guessing this is kind of the point that we've all jumped on the AI kind of a roller coaster, is in 2022, ChatGPT was released. And I think this was one of the first AI platforms that was accessible to you and I. It was accessible to the masses. And I think this is the reason we've seen a dramatic uptake in AI and it being talked about a lot more. I think prior to the release of ChatGPT, it wasn't something that was really in the news that often. I don't think people talked about it around the office. And I think the conception was it was still something for the future and not here right now. But the ability for us all to interact with ChatGPT actually saw it hit 1 million users in just 5 days. And to put that into some perspective for you, it took Netflix 3.5 years and it took Twitter 2 years to reach the same 1 million user milestone. So the actual rate of its growth was exponential when it first launched. So from the 1950s to now, AI has had a slow start, but due to the ever increases in processing power we now have and the amount of digital data we create every minute, that rate of progression right now is exponential. And I think recently there's been questions asked about the safety. I know I made a bit of a joke about it with the Terminator kind of slide at the beginning. The UK's government and Rishi Sunak actually held a AI safety summit recently, and they invited kind of other world leaders to discuss the risks of AI and things like that. I think it's a really good first step to ensure that these conversations have been had. But I do think it's really important that this is like a global conversation and tech leaders need to be involved in this, because it's really hard for governments and other organizations to regulate something they don't quite understand, and especially something that's moving so quickly. In fact, a fun fact I learned recently that demonstrates how AI might not be your best friend if it's misused is that the data and processing used by Visa and MasterCard is so sophisticated that they can actually tell you which of their clients are having affairs based on their spending patterns alone. So if you're currently having an affair, you might want to stay on the right side of your credit card provider. Okay, so kind of moving to present day, where we're at, what you should be using, which is the best tool, what should you all go out and use right now? I think everybody's aware of ChatGPT, and I think most people have played with it or know somebody that's used it. And I think it's great that it's given us access to interact with AI, but I don't think it's going to be the tool that will revolutionize our working lives. I think with any tech trend, there's currently like thousands of new platforms and AI has been released each month. So it can be really hard to know what is best and which is the right one to use. Luckily, Microsoft have just released their own AI, and it's called Copilot. It was officially released on the 1st of November. And unlike other AI tools like ChatGPT and some of the others we're seeing, they all sit outside of your current software suite and your current kind of core infrastructure. With Microsoft Copilot, it's actually natively embedded into the Microsoft ecosystem. So all of your 365 apps, SharePoint, Azure, all of the kind of suites and apps you're already using, Copilot is embedded natively within it. And because it is natively embedded within that ecosystem, it means it has the ability to interact with all the data that passes through it, rather than just that paragraph of text that we've been putting into ChatGPT. This can actually absorb 90% of the data that's being used in your business. And as we all know from Visa and MasterCard, the more data you have access to, the more sophisticated your outcomes can be. And it's probably for this reason that I believe this will be the AI that will actually revolutionize your business and your daily work tasks. Some of the things it can help you with, and this slide has just got a couple of animations showing Copilot in Excel and Word, but in Outlook. It can help in Outlook summarize incoming emails. It can generate draft replies automatically for you. It can create tasks based on message to-dos and things like that inside emails. And it can also help automatically arrange meetings with people using their calendar and being able to see what people are doing and when, rather than having that back and forth. In Microsoft Teams, for example, it can transcribe any video calls or meetings you're having, and any verbally agreed actions you have in those video calls, it can actually create and assign tasks to the different members of the meeting. So it saves in a lot of the post follow-up stuff we see with Teams meetings or video meetings in general. In Excel, for example, it can create formulas automatically. So if you kind of know what you're trying to achieve and you can give it the input, it will actually create the formula and the output automatically without you having to know the specific Excel string to put in. And when it comes to having big tables of data, it can actually help analyze the data and give you meaningful outputs that you can actually use, rather than just kind of sifting through tables and grids to try and find the little bits of information you need. And as I say, because all of the apps and the data live within that Microsoft ecosystem, Copilot can also then be used to automate tasks and stitch different apps together. So, for example, it could monitor a customer service email address, and it can analyze the emails for any negative sentiment. And if any negative sentiment was found in an email, maybe a customer complaint or something like that, it could alert line managers in Microsoft Teams, for example, about this customer frustration that might be brewing. And that will allow you then to kind of get ahead of it, and rather than be really reactive, try and be as proactive as possible to fix it. An example of how we've actually used AI recently with a client is they kind of receive really repetitive questions via email a lot of the time. They do have a knowledge base, but nobody tends to read it. So they kind of get asked these same questions over and over. And don't we all hate being asked the same questions over and over again, week after week, day after day? This is something they get all the time. So we've used the Microsoft AI to create them a chatbot. And essentially, we've fed in that knowledge base of articles it has. And instead of the clients now sending in email questions, we let the chatbot self-help them. So it uses the predetermined set of knowledge-based articles they already had, so there's no extra work for them there. And it just reduces that time it takes for them to have to answer questions or reply to emails. Where someone might ask a question of the chatbot it doesn't know the answer to, it will actually refer them to a member of the team who will answer it, and the answer they give will then be learned and fed back into the system. So the next time that scenario occurs, the answer's already there. So it'll be an ever-growing kind of chatbot and a knowledge base that will eventually mean there's no human interaction needed at all. This has basically removed some time for the team each day. Obviously, this was a time-consuming task, but more importantly, when it comes to work-life balance or engagement, it was a really tedious part of their working lives that they really disliked, and being able to take that away has not only helped save time and efficiency, but it's given them better engagement with their kind of sales team and that sort of stuff. Unfortunately, though, obviously Microsoft being Microsoft and charging or being one of the biggest, most profitable companies in the world, also know the value that Copilot has and can bring to your businesses. So they're not going to give this away for free. It currently costs $30 per user per month. But if it could save you a few hours in time every single week, then I'm sure it's a good $30 well spent. So hopefully by now, you kind of all realize that AI isn't actually that new. It's been in the making for a lot longer than most people realize. It's not an overnight fad that's going to disappear like my Bitcoin funds, and it can really add value to your business and your working day. Some of you might have heard enough right now to maybe go out and get started with Copilot or have a play, but I'm aware that others will need a bit more before they want to subscribe to another product. So with that in mind, I have a completely free quick win that everybody can start to use right now. And it's called Fireflies. So I'm sure all of us have at least one Zoom or Teams call a week right now. I know I'm still having nightmares from the endless Zoom meetings and video calls that we seem to have in lockdown. And while Microsoft Copilot will be able to note take, summarize, and create tasks in these video calls, there's also a completely free tool called Fireflies that will do this for you. You can use the QR code I've got on screen right now, which takes you to the website. You can sign up. It will work with Microsoft Teams, Zoom, and Google Meets, and it'll work on your phones, your computers, and your tablets, so you can use it literally anywhere. To get started with it, sign up at fireflies.ai, create a completely free account, and follow the instructions to start monitoring your video calls. Then literally all you have to do is decide how you're going to spend the time you save from each meeting and each meeting follow-up. So to briefly wrap up then, AI was born in the 50s, and it took the best part of 70 years for you to be able to benefit from it. Today now marks a point in the history of AI where we can all embrace it for an easier life. Let's not all wait another 70 years for the next major milestone.